Welcome to this week's Smarketing Show. We're so excited to welcome Dr. Cindy Gordon today, CEO and founder of SalesChoice, Inc. She's a change maker, Forbes Media thought leader, a well-published author, and on we could go, Cindy. We're so excited to have you on the show today. Welcome.
Thanks, Melissa, and really welcome to be here. And thank you, Rick, for inviting me. I'm just looking forward to our conversation, and I love your energy. Whoa, you go.
Well, we try. We speed up the video and production, but nobody knows that. Hey, listen, I want to add, you've written 14 books, okay? And I think, a bunch of them may be behind you there. You were also 2022 selected top 10 revenue management software solutions. So there's got to be some energy in what you're doing. And I thought if you could share with our audience today, what does SalesChoice do? Just give us a framework, if you can, of what you guys do there. And then we'll get into kind of revenue generation, methodology, strategy, predictability, and all those great things.
Well, I think the idea germinated because I saw for many years, I was always wondering why sales professionals don't all meet their sales quotas. And I kept seeing the same problem. The same problem was 20% of the sales reps, usually in organizations, are lobbed off. The middle tier are mediocre, and then you've got the top 20% that typically help make the plan. And we train everybody, we try to recruit the right people, we onboard them. And why are there variances? Well, one of the things that I've learned in my research is that 30% of sales professionals suffer from attention deficit disorder.
Could you start again? I'm not paying attention. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, it's a very serious point. And
that's a big percentage.
What we do not know, we don't design software that reflects that learning dynamic. And we don't manage to that dynamic either as sales leaders. And we don't often train sales manager how to adjust their leadership style based on cognitive dissonance. The human condition, before we get into what we do, our attention span has declined to less than, I think it's 7 seconds as a human race. So we're moving into a period where less is more. And the design of how we build our practices and processes need to be far more simplified. So the sales professional is probably one of the most significant professions we have in the world because they drive revenue and growth. All of the other infrastructures, and from my perspective, are enablers to help them, get that goal over the goal line. So we built a software platform on using Salesforce data sets that we could get to levels of over 90% predictive accuracy using cognitive analytics. And what I mean by that is we prioritize everything into A, B's, and C's. So you think about it, you've got all the historical knowledge on the win plays. It's just like seeing the computer becomes a giant chessboard, and it shows you what to do, what not to do, and it gives you that foresight. So we have playbooks that are well designed to get you to hopefully President's Club, and we've got clients that they no longer have to do the old world of sitting down and drilling everybody on their forecast. They just press a button and say, okay, it's 95%, we're going to land there. And they also won't accept the inputs from the sales professionals unless it's best vetted by the AI software. So we have one company now that, SalesChoice makes all the decisions. Now, what that means for the salesperson is that when they wake up in the morning, and obviously these are bigger pipes. I mean, they have to be chasing 30 to 50 deals minimum. They're not for, you got one account, right? It's really for, more commercial, I'd call it sales that have got a lot of volume. So that's what we've done. It's all about ending revenue uncertainty and driving growth, but very carefully designed from a science perspective. And I think that's been one of the missing links in often sales professions is that we don't have enough scientific rigor into the operating practices.
Well, Cindy, I can't agree with you more. Like, having been a sales rep and sit in those forecasting meetings and been a sales leader and trying to squeeze a percentage of probability out of a sales rep that, is really looking to grease me as the leader that this is going to happen. And, as you listen to Cindy today, if you're a Salesforce customer, you probably already know her solution. And this is why we wanted to have her on. If you're not, you might want to get to know her. But I want you to know as a listener or viewer that Cindy comes from a sales role. She's not just a technical person. And we both share a very fond memory and starting point in our careers at Xerox Corporation, which taught us to be not just great business people, but good people and do the right thing. Hey, when it comes to revenue forecasting and revenue uncertainty, like, what do you think it is that most businesses are missing in that area, and why does that occur in today's environment?
Well, I think in most of the environments today, I think people have really struggled with getting the quality of data into their CRM software infrastructures. And that's a systemic issue. So you've got different behaviors of different reps. And part of it is that we haven't trained our sales managers to understand that data is king. So we ask a lot of questions and we drill, right? To vet. And sometimes we put those questions into workflow logic. And yet we ask way too many questions that really aren't necessary. So I think there's pathways to win. And often, because we focus on large data sets, there is a centrifugal force within the data. There is an estimated time frame for that particular sales type. We know that intuitively. A certain product, certain industry is maybe more prime for that type of solution. They have more maturity. And so what we've learned is that with large data sets, large companies, you can get to incredible accurate perspectives, not just on the renewals, but also on the net new. And so what's missing is, I think there's a gap in digital literacy, Rick and Melissa, within training sales professionals. It's not just in sales, it's at board of directors, it's at C-suite levels. So they understand the language of data and they understand the language of AI, because at the end of the day, all the business processes are going to have an AI underpinning. It doesn't matter if you're small, medium, or large. You may not have the data, but you'll import the data if you're small business, or you'll purchase a solution. So we're going through, just like we went through with, let's say radio, Melissa, right? Or television. We are going through a very major sea change right now. And so the missing piece to me is understanding data is your most strategic asset. Some people like to call it as the new oil. I don't like that analogy because I think it's far too narrow, because oil is a scarce resource. I'd rather say that AI is the new air, and it's everywhere.
Right. Can you give us an example about a business that implemented what you suggested and some of the outcomes that they had?
Sure. Well, there's a couple. Most of the cases are on our website as well, but I'll talk about Purolator because they're a $2 billion company. Our software runs for small business, inside sales, mid-market, and also enterprise commercial accounts. So in that case, we've built 4 AI models that are unique to those different lines of business and opportunity types. And we're getting to levels sometimes of over 90% predictive accuracy on outside sales, averaging well over 78 to 80% on all scenarios. So it's not just what am I going to land in the next week? It's the next quarter, 6 months out, because we can see the full volume. And with AI, it learns over time, right? So, B2B, the market that shifted as we went from COVID, where all of a sudden the volume went up in B2C and B2B went down, right? Because Amazon was very happy. And obviously that mix is starting to shift as consumers are returning to retail. The AI picks up on all the trends, right? And predicts outcomes. We also have a very visible lens on data completeness, which is really cool. Because I learned very early that, I'd see what the predictions were in the models, and I'd sit down with our scientists and I'd say, okay, guys, what's wrong here? And so we built views that are idiot proof, right? Here's Rick. Here are all the most critical fields in the data set, and this is his percentage count, and his area is red, like those good old dashboards in Xerox, red, yellow, green, red, yellow, green. So we brought those to life within the application. We have another client, Net2Phone. They're actually an Ottawa-based company, more mid-market. They were acquired by IDT, which is a telco. But in their particular case, what we have there is the sales leader is very astute. And what she was doing is that every morning in her sales cadence reviews, she would just bring up the data completeness view. And so she was leading from a data first. And they got to levels of 99% data accuracy. And in that instance, we're still running at 97. But they built a culture, data first. Don't talk to me. I can see your fields, and you know what? You are not in good shape. And so she just drove that adrenaline. And then another one would be RL Datix, which they're a larger entity, and they're in the health sciences business, or I'd call it health compliance business software. And a very astute John Sells, former Dell sales ops leader, the science got so accurate that it didn't matter what a rep said, Rick, it's almost unheard of. He'd say, sorry, not going into commit, off, 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 off. And so either it lined up with the AI agents or it didn't. So my point is that the world's getting, these systems are getting smarter and smarter. And as we mature in data literacy, it'll be a very different game in sales. And I've been saying for quite some time that sales professionals need to be more digitally literate and data literate. And as much as we like to think, it's relationship first. And believe me, I come from that background. I now know that there's a science and it's extremely reliable. And so it's like the centrifugal force of physics.
Yeah.
And then you're dealing with outliers and your odds just diminish. So that's I think those are some of the things that are missing. Obviously, it always goes back to leadership, Rick, in all sincerity.
Yeah. What we're seeing, and we work with like a wide range of B2B salespeople. So we can this is why I wanted to have you on, is because sales leaders, you got supply chain on the top end, never mind the forecasting. I mean, it's just it's a mess right now. And I think, in the old school days, even today, for those that haven't adopted a data first mentality, the position of the deal sits really between the sales rep and the customer. The company has low visibility or predictability, like you're talking about. And I think, the AI that you speak of, we're seeing creep into all different areas of sales and marketing. And, you referenced in some of your posts, I saw you're talking about a chief data scientist. Like, more organizations are going to need that type of role. And I couldn't agree with you more. Like, sales reps that don't live within the data to understand how to make data-driven decisions, I think are going to get passed by those that can understand the different pockets of data, assemble them in a meaningful model, use AI for predictability and workflow and all those things. I thought we were singing the same song, and that's why I wanted to have you on today. So, I think if there's one thing, if I was to ask you, what would you like, if I'm a sales professional, I'm a business leader, I'm a sales leader, I'm a marketing leader watching today, Cindy, given your broad experience, obviously with Salesforce as the backbone, what would you suggest people do?
I think the first thing is to ensure that you build a culture that values data. We like to say we make data speak. I think that it's really an inspection process, and sales professionals that are really good will inspect, but the cadence and the questions they ask, they have to change, right?
Yeah.
So, you have to step back and use the term earlier methodology, right? Like, we have to step back and look at all the practices and processes and ensure that if we're going to build an AI enablement layer around those, that we really take seriously the changes in leadership questions, the cadence, the performance metrics, and it's like with any major change, it's got to ebb and flow into all kinds of different operating frameworks, right? Probably the other most important point is to recruit people that are more analytically inclined. And that's not always been, top of the food chain when it comes to the type of people you need in sales, right? And so that sometimes the math skills aren't as strong. And so I do think you need to think about the hiring profile for the future. If you can't read a histogram, for example, you will have a hard time with AI. And I found that basic statistics is definitely a major gap in many sales professionals learning, understanding what a correlation means, what variance means, what modality means. So you have to train people, right, on the language of statistics. So, I kind of going back to that digital literacy point, but it's not a one trick pony, Rick. You have to step back and build an overall, I call it organizational transformation, and look at all the practices. And you and I both know the importance of role modeling and leadership. You can bring the best methodologies to bear. You can bring the best software, but if you don't role model the leadership behaviors and the conversations and those weekly reviews or those account reviews, the rest is just insight that nobody's really harnessing.
Yeah. No, there's definitely a human component that has to bridge with, the data and the technology and, the digital competency. But, just in closing, because I wanted to, reinforce what you just said, because I would hazard to guess very few sales leaders interviewing or looking for sales, professionals right now have questions around how they're using data in their current role to, you know what I mean? Whether it's to start, advance, monitor, measure. That would be a great question, I think, for a sales leader, because we're not talking about today's sales rep. We're not just talking about today. We're talking about a sales rep next year, the year after. And, one of the things I do agree with from your writings is that, COVID pushed us in a digital way that we have never seen before. And that's just been wind in our sails as a marketing agency, as an online training business, in your model with AI. So I just want to thank you very much for jumping on today. I know you've been very successful with what you're doing. And, Salesforce is de facto standard in many people's eyes. So thanks for joining us today to share. So, Melissa, what if someone wanted to get a hold of Dr. Cindy Gordon, what would they do?
Cindy, I would send them over to LinkedIn. Connect with you on LinkedIn.
That's an easy pathway, or just simply cindy@saleschoice.com. And obviously you can just, find us on the internet, www.saleschoice.com. Very easy.
Or buy one of your books.
That's true. They're not necessarily about sales. They're about, the last one was on artificial intelligence and the AI dilemma, creating a perfect world or a perfect storm. So I've been pretty active in the AI ethics community as well. So I'm not a believer in black box AI. It's really more around being able to understand what's happening in the data set so that people are in control.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
We could do a whole other show on that with you.
We absolutely could.
Thank you, and congrats on what you're doing. Thanks for being a guest on the Smarketing Show.
Thanks. We'll see you next week, everyone.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Smarketing Show. If you enjoyed today's show, please like, share, and subscribe to get the latest B2B insights to help you market and sell to win.